to get those men back, because American soldiers always go get their wounded. We never leave them. Folks, Colonel McNight is, unfortunately for him, a graduate of Florida State University. And now I have this, you didn't know he's going to get quizzed today, but tell me, does anyone know what all students at FSU have in common with all Gator students? They all tried to get in UF. That one came from a former governor of this state. But nevertheless, Danny and I'm sure he'll get his cracks. And me, that's one disadvantage. He gets the microphone after I do. So, but I told him earlier, I said, Danny, what you didn't know was I brought my Gator bodyguard here, Pastor Tony McCoy. Tony, stand up and show these people how big my bodyguard is. I don't know if y'all have met Tony or not, but Tony's the pastor of Hope International Church over here in Groveland. Tony was a defensive tackle for the Gators, an All-American in '91, and played 10 years in the NFL, and helped Peyton Manning get off to his good career start there in Indianapolis. But anyhow, Colonel McNight is, there's 3 or 4 pages of information I could read to you about him, but you didn't come to hear that. You came to hear what he has to say. He did bring some books. I begged him to bring some books. The Streets of Mogadishu is straight off of his pen and how it really happened. And he, like me, tells it straight from the hip. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He's not politically correct, but he gives you the straight up scoop. And I would encourage you to either buy the book or download it off of Amazon on your Kindle or whatever. But Danny's a great guy. I first met him playing in a golf tournament. And we just clicked in the very beginning. We share the same values of God, family, friends, work, our country, patriotism. We can push aside our collegiate rivalry. To his great credit, he did get his graduate degree at the University of Florida. I had the privilege of meeting General Jerry Boykin, who was Danny's commander there in Mogadishu, at a meeting out in Dallas. Danny was nowhere around. I have no idea how long it had been since the two of them had spoken. But when I walked up to General Boykin and I asked him, does the name Danny McNight ring a bell with you? Immediately, the general just stood a little taller, and you could see the expression of respect and love and admiration come across that general's face for my friend Danny McNight. There's just no way to describe Danny McNight except a dear, dear friend of mine and a true American hero. Danny, come and give us what's on your heart today.
He's right, I get to speak last, huh? First thing is, thank you very much to both the men sitting right here. Fred, who I'd never met until this morning, although as many times as we talked on the phone and email, we knew each other pretty well. And of course, Senator, as he said we met playing golf. I think playing golf was using it loosely, but we played a little golf, but we had a great time, and we've done that a couple of times, as a matter of fact, really have. And so that is truly my honor. And found it interesting that he had to bring a bodyguard. I don't know what he thought it might do to him, But big as Tony is, I'll be nice to the senator today. But I promise you, if I do get ugly with him, I can outrun you, Tony. That's one thing I can still do, okay? It was an honor to be asked to come over here and do this. And a little drive from Rockledge, Florida, over there in Brevard County. Easy drive, Only hard part this morning was dodging the people that were going 90 miles an hour, because obviously they didn't get up early enough this morning to get where they had to. And I really thought one had me this morning, but I survived that one too. But when Fred asked me to speak and talk a little bit about leadership, I'll talk a little bit about it, a little bit about motivation and inspiration, because that's sort of what I do. I'm now a full-time motivational speaker. Nationally, I've done over 80 events every year since I went full-time in July of 2005. On the road about 220 days a year. I have had the privilege to speak in all 50 states of the United States of America. And I am so proud of that. And people sometimes say, yeah, but you were in the Army, you traveled. Yeah, where I went, you did not want to go, okay? It wasn't in the 50 states very much. And then I've spoken in every province in Canada. I've got to work on them a little bit because the only time they invite me up there is when it's minus 21, like it was the last time when I went this year. And last year I went, it was a warm minus 5. I finally said to them, I said, don't you ever do anything in the summer that I can come to? They said, no, we only have 3 months of summer, we don't work, we play for 3 straight months. I said, okay, I got it. And then I've spoken in Puerto Rico, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. So I've been so very blessed since I retired to get to do what I do and be around people like you who really are interested in making things better. And we got some work to do, but we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. There's no doubt about it. And there's people like Alan Hayes, and Dan Webster, and others, you know, that can do it. We just got to be there for them. It's not them always being there for us. We got to be there for them. And so I'm very focused on that part. Well, I just have to tell you, my lovely wife would have been here, but with it being Mother's Day weekend, it was ladies' tea at the First Baptist Church of Cocoa, Florida, where we go. And so she's attending the ladies' tea. And I'm actually have to thank Fred for having me here this morning, because had I not been committed to be here, I would be in black trousers, white shirt with a little bow tie, being a server, okay? Thank you, Fred, so much. So I got out of that one without any too big a problem. But I really have to, I guess Alan, he probably just forgot, okay, in all honesty. But he talked about my master's degree. I am a proud Florida State Seminole, and I did get a master's degree from the University of Florida. I was teaching Army ROTC there for 3 years. They didn't ask me if I wanted to go to the University of Florida to teach ROTC. They told me, the Army, don't ask, okay? But it was good because I was close to my family in Brevard County, so I did that. And while I was there, I said, you know, this is an opportunity I cannot pass up. I need to take my Montgomery GI Bill and get my master's degree. And so I went to classes at night and the evening and everything, and you probably know Dr. Art Sandine, one of my favorite people in the world, because he was one of my professors on a couple of classes. And I got my master's degree while I was there. And there are people like Alan that on occasion will get a little zealous and say, well, you've got your master's degree at the University of Florida. You finally learned what higher education was all about. No, I found an easy place to get a master's degree, thank you very much. It worked out really well. I told you I was going to get you. I'm very blessed to say that, our educational system in the state of Florida, to me, is second to none. With the universities we have, the community colleges now, 4-year schools like Eastern Florida State College in Brevard County. I went to school there right out of high school for 2 years. It was called Brevard Junior College then. I got my degree there, and then I went to Florida State. After I retired, I worked in the Emergency Operations Center in Brevard County, and I also taught at Brevard Community College. And now this fall, I'll become an adjunct professor at Eastern Florida State College. So I've covered all 3 aspects of that college, and it's so much fun. Because my master's degree from Florida is in higher education, I did it for a reason. I don't think we can ever get too educated. So that was the reason I chose to do that. So that's sort of the background a little bit, but Alan also, I got to make sure I correct one thing. Linda and I weren't married when I was in the Army. I was married to another woman then, the mother of my 2 girls. But I would tell you that God blessed me, and I wish he could be here because of my opportunity now to be married to Linda. We've known each other since we were 9 years old. We met in the First Baptist Church of Cocoa, Florida. She was holding some little boy's hand back in the other pew over there, I don't know. We graduated high school together, went through everything but elementary together, junior high, high school. Never dated one time. Linda loved the beach. I loved playing football, basketball, baseball. That's all I did. And she has inspired me to do what I'm doing today, and she does do a whole bunch to make it happen. But we reacquainted at our 35th class reunion, the first one I ever went to. Class reunions can be very dangerous. We got married 8 years ago, this past March the 11th. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life, without doubt. And we are now members of the same church that we grew up in again. So she gives her best to y'all today. But you know, there's a lot of things you get to talk about. If you will, put that first slide for me. And this is sort of what I think we need to remember. Because if we want to have an impact, this is one of the most important things to never forget. This is a picture of the reality of sacrifice. This is an Air Force C-141 aircraft sitting on the runway in Mogadishu, Somalia in October of 1993. You see the back end open, and you see the members of the task force standing there. The reality of sacrifice here is very simple. We're awaiting the flag-draped caskets of 18 American soldiers that died in the battle referred to as Blackhawk Down. This is a reality, folks. The reality existed from the day our founding fathers said there's a better way, and we're going to find it, and we're going to make it happen. But you want to talk about the sacrifice that they made? It's unbelievable. And I think sometimes it's important that we go all the way back that far to remember why we are here today. Still the greatest country on earth, not perfect by any means, and way ahead of whatever second. But it's all because of sacrifice to me. Sacrifice of our founding fathers, sacrifice of those that fought every battle since then so that we could be here now. And the sacrifice of young men and women in uniform in places like Afghanistan still today. We couldn't be here enjoying this if it wasn't for that. It is a reality. I wish it wasn't. I wish it would never happen again. But you know and I know, when you're number one, somebody's always coming after you. And we are number one. And we're always going to have challenges to our homeland. Whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else still challenging us. We have got to get better at understanding sacrifice. We have got to get people that can have an impact to start making an impact. I'm very pleased to see this number here, but I'm a little disappointed because I don't see enough young people, folks. So the few young ones that are here, God bless you. I'm happy you're here. But see, we've got to get them to understand what needs to be done. I have a 22-year-old grandson that's been driving to Claremont, the UCF campus, for this past year of his classes. And I promise you, if my grandson was sitting here, he'd tell you he got it. Because he's been around me. He don't have a choice but to get it. But see, I don't have any problem with that. I want him to learn that he's at a point in his life at 22, soon to be 23, that he needs to start stepping up and making a difference. Don't wait till you're 40 or 45 or 50, or a little older like some of us here are. We need to get that group of people involved. And I promise you, I challenge it. And I try real hard to do that. About a week ago, I started my week in the villages to give you an idea of what I get to do and how I think we can have an impact. I was in the midst of 15 great Americans. All of them were men who were awarded recipients of the Distinguished Flying Cross. World War II, 2 of them. Korea and Vietnam. One of those that fought in World War II flew B-25s. The average likelihood of survival of flying B-25s in combat in World War II was if you completed 3 combat missions, you've been really lucky. You might not want to go the 4th time. One of the men sitting there flew 28 combat missions in a B-25. And I had the privilege to be with him and others that morning. On Tuesday, I had the great privilege of going to East River High School in Bithlo, Florida, because I got to teach 5 ROTC classes. Now, there was a little problem with it because they had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I don't do that anymore. But they start at 7:15. But when I thought about just the fact, on Monday, I'm with the guys that understand this, that's made a difference. And then the next day, I get to talk to the ones that's got to understand it to make a difference in the future. See, I'm pretty lucky and blessed to get to do what I do. And then later in that week, I did an award ceremony at Rockledge High for their ROTC program. And on Saturday night, a week ago today, I was speaking to Korean War veterans from the 5th Regimental Combat Team that fought so gallantly in the Korean War. I was their speaker, and there was about 40 of them, family members there, because the youngest one was 81 years old. And I got to be in their presence. See, they motivate me to come talk to you. And the real motivation was when one of them at the end stood up and said, "Now I'll read the names of ours that are not here since last year." There was 52 names left. Folks, we're losing that part very quickly. Our veterans from World War II, from Korea. We have got to step up. I'm not saying you, I'm saying we, and I'm pointing at me too. And what we've got to start doing is quit being so doggone politically correct about things. It makes me want to throw up. It's about the bluntest I can put it, folks, okay? We've got to have leaders that are willing to make the hard right decision versus the easy wrong. It's that simple. And maybe if we understood that better, we'd be willing to do it. The sacrifice that our young men and women in uniform make for us, and the men and women in the uniform of our sheriff, the uniform of our men and women in all law enforcement and fire and rescue. Because think about sacrifice. It's been really close to home to us in the past few months, hasn't it? We lost a deputy sheriff named Deputy Pine. What was he doing? He was taking care of you and I, and he was willing to step up and sacrifice. He didn't want to, and he left behind a wonderful wife and 3 kids, but he knew that's what he was going to do. Then we lost one in Windermere. And you can go on from there, unfortunately, because we've lost another one. We lost a highway patrol officer just the other day. See, they understood this. I promise you the sheriff doesn't want to have this happen to any of his people today or tomorrow or any time in the future. But I promise you he knows it could happen. We need to remember that. Sacrifice is a very important part of us making a difference because we need to understand it. This slide right here is my leadership slide. And really leadership is what we've got to get in touch with again. Because we sort of lost it. We really have. And if you're sitting here saying, well, I understand it. Understanding leadership and doing it is 2 different things. Now this slide right here, you're not going to get much of it because that takes me an hour and a half when I speak to cover one slide. Because I do anything from 30 minutes like I'm roughly going to do with you to 7 hours. You don't want the long version today, let me tell you. But I promise you, Fred knows he's got to have a hook to make sure I don't go too long, because I love talking to you. And what I'm hoping that will come out of this is not just that you walk away feeling more empowered to go make a difference, but you go find others and you reach out and put your hands on them in some form or fashion and say, this is what we've got to do. Because we had this crazy Army Ranger guy up there telling us we got to do it. We got to do it, folks. And leadership is the essence of one of our biggest problems in our country today. We have way too much political correctness going on. Oh, we don't want to say that to that group of people because it might offend them. Tell them to get over it. I mean, I really believe that, folks. And see, I'll be honest, I've been asked that question, well, why don't you run for public office? Two answers to that. First, I say you got to be out of your ever-loving mind to ask me to do that, because I'd last about 2 days. The second part, and the most important part, Linda told me I'd be looking for my fourth wife, okay? So that's the really important part, okay? Yeah, I had a couple before. But folks, I believe that when I get an opportunity like I have right now with you, I can have a greater impact than anything else I do. Because I hope that you walk away from here and say, we can fix it. We just got to be willing to step up and do it. And you're going to help me by going out there and finding some of those younger people that we want to understand and make a difference. The people that are here that we're going to hear today, we've already heard some from Alan. We're going to hear from a few more, Dan Webster, etc. We're going to hear them, but we've got to take what they say and put it in our pockets and go out there and do something with it. That's the challenge we have. And see, if you want to put it in perspective of those things you see up there, you know, leadership's not rocket science, folks. It's actually one of the most simple things in the world to do. It's not easy, but it's pretty simple. Because those 7 values you see up there are the basis of good leadership. Now, I will tell you, there's 2 kinds of leaders you will encounter in your life. Only 2. Good ones and bad ones. There's no maybes here. And fortunately, we do have more good leaders than bad leaders. But unfortunately, the bad leaders can have such a terrible impact that we have to get that part fixed. And you see, I'm not really talking about political parties or anything. I'm talking about people that are willing to make a difference. I don't care what your party is. I'm a staunch Republican, plain and simple. But my father raised me pretty well. I remember him telling me one time when I was talking to him about, what do I do regarding political party, Dad? What do I do regarding who to vote for? He said, the first thing you need to understand, son, is it doesn't matter what your political party is, it's what you believe in here. That's the important part. You can be whatever party you want to be. I personally think if we just had all independents and everybody had to run for themselves, it would be fine. Because it should be based on what we believe. And if you're voting because of a certain party belief versus your own belief, I think we have a problem with that. Because that's being politically correct. And that don't get it. I've had a few people come up to me on occasion after I finish speaking and say, "You really believe all that stuff you say?" I said, "Follow me for a couple of weeks and see." You bet I do. And I really mean this is an opportunity that I feel blessed to have. And I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that Fred asked me to do this. I really am. But what we need is 10 times as many people sitting here. And, like I said, we need the other generation here too. I was going to bring my 22-year-old grandson with me today, but he had to work. Otherwise, he was going to be sitting here whether he liked it or not. But he would say to you, "Well, Grandpa, I've already heard you." I said, "Yeah, but you need to hear more. It's okay." That's what we have to do, folks. It really is. And last Tuesday night, I was back at Bethwell at that same high school because they had their award ceremony for their ROTC cadets. And I got to speak. And as I looked at a lot of them and talked to them, we've got young people out there, folks. We got them. They're out there. And some of them do care. Some of them want to make a difference. You wouldn't be willing to go to West Point if you didn't want to make a difference, in my opinion. I was offered a congressional appointment to go to West Point my senior year in high school. My dad told me about it and said, "What do you think?" I remember the words like it was yesterday. "Dad, why would I want to go in the Army?" Little did I know what the future held, but it all worked out just fine. See, we have people out there that can make a difference, and I saw some of them at East River High School in Bithlow. I saw someone walk across the stage at Rockledge High School. They're there, but we've got to get to them. We need them sitting here too. We don't just need us. We need them. Well, I want to sort of, go to the next slide. I want to sort of just finish up and tell you what Alan mentioned briefly. How many people read a book called Blackhawk Down? We're not very good at reading. How many people saw the movie Blackhawk Down? Oh yeah, we're much better at watching movies than reading books. And believe me, that's very common. Well, I will tell you the book was well done. Mark Ballin wrote the book. My input to Mark Ballin in writing the book was zero. I never spoke to him. The reason was I had a rule. My rule was as long as I was wearing the uniform, I was not going to discuss anything I did. And I stuck with that rule. The only bad part of that was my dad passed away 2 years before I got to share anything with him. But Mark Ballin did a good job. When I did talk to him 5 years later, he said to me, he said, "Well, what do you think of the book?" I said, "It's pretty well done, Mark." He says, "Pretty well?" He says, "Anything wrong?" I said, "Yeah." And he asked me, and I told him the two things, and I said, "But don't worry about it, I'm corrected in my book." He said, "You're going to write a book?" I said, "Oh yeah." And then the movie came out, and Ridley Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer, they're pretty good at what they do, and they did a great job. Movie's probably 75% accurate. I was still in active duty, so I only had a little input to that, and that was because when they were filming in Morocco, two technical advisors who were retired colonels, who were lieutenant colonels over there, they were my counterparts. One was the aviator, one was an operations guy. They retired, and they were the technical advisors, which made a big difference. And then the actor that portrayed me in the movie, Tom Sizemore, called twice. And I answered his questions, as he told me later on, very short and succinct. I said, well, that's what it's supposed to be. Now, if you saw the movie and you saw Tom Sizemore, you'll notice Tom Sizemore's a much bigger guy than I am. But he's not as good looking as I am. One of these days, I'm going to get an audience. Don't laugh at that one. I can't get through that. Linda and I were in California for a Wounded Warrior event. The guest of honor was a guy named Gary Sinise, a great American who really reaches out to our soldiers. I say soldiers, all services. He was there, and we got introduced, and we're talking to each other, and Linda said, "Let me take a picture." So she did, and then we're standing there, and she looked, and she says, "Gary, you should have played Danny in the movie." He says, "You know what? I auditioned for that. They told me I wasn't big enough. I didn't know size counted. You know? I'd be 6'8" to shoot a bullet. You know? It works out okay." But anyway, both of them were done well. And I'm proud that they were done, because if the book hadn't been done and the movie hadn't been done, you would have had no clue that anything like that really went on over there. And what you did have a clue of, you would have said, this is the worst failure we've ever had in the history of our country, which is absolutely false. So I chose to write a book that I call The Rest of the Story. I promise you it's things you've never heard, right, Alan? Yes, sir. Yeah. My book is titled Streets of Mogadishu, subtitled Leadership at Its Best, talking about in the streets of Mogadishu. Political correctness at its worst, talking about in the White House. There was that guy named Bill Clinton there. He will not like my book, but I've already got one highlighted for him so I can mail it to him. I challenge him to read it and deny the things that I wrote because I know they're true. I have a lot of great input from a lot of great people that I will never use their names, I promise them. This is the rest of the story. The first 3 chapters in this book are about leadership. Really has nothing to do with the Battle of Mogadishu. It's about leadership. One of the great people I talk about in there was a guy that I got to know well, and I was blessed to know him. How many people have ever heard of a guy named Hal Moore, retired Lieutenant General? Very few. How many people saw the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson? That's Hal Moore that Mel Gibson's playing. General Moore was one of the greatest warriors we ever had in the history of our country. I was blessed to get to know him and have him spend time with us at 3rd Ranger Battalion after his book came out. General Moore passed away 2 months ago. How many people knew that? Nobody. Isn't that a shame? Because I promise you, when Whitney Houston died, we knew that. When Seymour Hoffman, whatever his name was, died, we knew that. See, that's a problem I have with political correctness. We don't want to talk about General Hal Moore, one of the greatest leaders and warriors our country's ever had. But we want to talk about the others. We got to start getting it right. And yes, it bothers me that General Moore was not given the proper respect of a true warrior and leader in our country. Anyway, this book is the rest of the story. Yes, I do have them back there. If anybody's interested in purchasing one, they're $20. If you get one, you'll look on the back and say it says $17.95 back here. Well, my wife, being brilliant as she is, said, you know, if we charge $20, she don't have to make $2.05 change. She said, but more importantly, everybody keeps asking, how can we help our warriors? How can we help our wounded warriors especially? That's what we came up with. We've given over $3,000 because of my little book to take care of our wounded warriors. And I don't mean the Wounded Warrior Project in D.C. Matter of fact, I tell you, don't give to them. They get $15 million federally funded every year. Take care of the ones that are local that we can reach out to. And if you need any addresses on some of them, I got them. And I'll be happy to email them to Fred or anybody, and he can share that with you. That's what we need to do. But that's what this book's about. I'll give you one little thought to maybe intrigue you that there's a whole lot to the rest of the story. We were trained and ready to go. We trained at Fort Bragg for 10 days. On August the 22nd, General Garrison said, we're ready. You guys get a couple of days downtime before we deploy. On August the 22nd of 1993, the mission to Somalia was canceled. Does that surprise you? I would think it would, because, well, how did you get there? They canceled the mission on August the 22nd. They said some things had changed. Yeah, it's called having a commander-in-chief that didn't understand the military because he was a draft dodger and burned the American flag during the Vietnam War. That's what changed. They didn't want to do it after they volunteered to the UN to do it. So on August the 22nd, my element of Rangers, we flew back to Fort Bliss, Texas, where we'd been training. We were there 10 hours and we were notified the mission's back on. Now folks, who are these leaders making this decision? These are people that it does make a difference. Your experience. And look at what is happening to our military today. I am scared to death when I hear them talk about pre-World War II level of a military force. We have been through this after the Vietnam War. I know, I was there going through it in the 70s. Thank God for Ronald Reagan, is all I can say. That's what we need. We need somebody willing to put us on the right track and make the hard decisions and say, we got to get it done. It might not be easy, but we got to get it done. I am so afraid of the future of our national security. And what bothers me about that is 5 grandkids that I have. 22-year-old, he'll be okay. His 17-year-old brother, graduating high school in Melbourne, going to play college football at a small college in Arkansas, he'll be okay. And it's a Christian school, Pastor. You know the 3 I'm worried about? My 40-year-old grandson. My daughter's a nurse. Her husband's a deputy sheriff in Indian River County. But I worry about him. I worry about my soon-to-be 3-year-old granddaughter and my 13-week-old granddaughter. That's what I worry about. I'm going to survive. I'm like some of you, real little old. Proud of it. But I worry about my grandkids, folks. Their future is what I want to see better. But we got to start making a difference now. We got to do away with this political correctness that's eating us up. We can save money if we have a smaller military. Yeah, and you can have less national security at the same time too. Make your choices on which one you want. We can do away with a lot of things, but national security, public safety in our communities is not one of them. So I challenge you and me, us, to get out there and make a difference. You can't do it by yourself, but you got to reach out and put your hands on people too. Every one of us have that responsibility because we are citizens of the greatest country ever to exist on the face of the earth. I'm going to finish with a very small little thing I want to read to you. I put the glass on now. I do have some DVDs back there for people that don't want to read this 90 minutes of me talking about leadership. After this, you're going to say, I don't want to hear him anymore. Also have business cards back there. And I have a very important card. It's in my wallet all the time. It's called Psalms 91. The most protective scripture there is in the Bible. That is for our first responders, and I know the sheriff knows Ed Mary Gamster, without a doubt, probably about Operation Safety 91. I'm their national spokesperson. I want to finish with reading this because I think it sort of says what I'm trying to get you to understand that we have to do. It says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. It's what we've got to be, folks. We got to be strong. We got to be willing to be strong and make a difference. This little thing here was the 20th anniversary celebration of 3rd Major Battalion's battle in Mogadishu. We had a reunion last October for the first time. Over 300 people. Hosted by a great American named H. Ross Perot. Folks, we can make a difference. We got to start today. And all the young people in here, thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being here. We need you. We need you. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America.